Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. This is the Nokia 6120 Classic, a mid-range smartphone released in April of 2007 that ran Symbian Series 60. At the time, Series 60 was a fairly capable software, way more capable than Series 40, which was not based on Symbian, and actually more capable in many aspects than the first iterations of iOS or iPhone OS as it was called at the time, where you couldn't even install third-party software, multitask, record videos, or even do something as simple as copying and pasting text, things that you could easily do on this so-called obsolete software. This phone was one of my first smartphones and sure one of my favorites as well. It used to be my mom's, but when she got another one, it was just there doing nothing, so I picked it up to install games on it, and that's how I slowly made it mine. The unit I have here looks all beat up because I used this phone as either my main or backup phone from 2008 to 2013. I often had better phones than this one, but I went through unstable times with my phones. I got robbed several times, I lost several others, or some would simply break. I literally lost 8 phones in the span of 5 years. Among them some good phones like the Sony Ericsson K790 that stopped working for unknown reasons, or my beloved Nokia 5800 in 2011, which got stolen. So because of this I kept coming back to this phone, which was always there for me, and despite me taking relatively good care of it, the plastic chassis aged from the use alone. One cool thing about these phones was the fact you could change the exterior housing with ease. See, if you drop your phone and broke it, you could replace the frame, the keyboard, and the screen so it would look like new. I actually tried to find a housing for this unit, but I didn't find any, so I had to leave it like this. Also, when making this video, my phone got stuck in a boot loop, so I couldn't take it out so much. For some reason, it only works when it's plugged to a charger. It's not a battery because I've got spare ones, and the issue still persisted. Maybe it's a software issue, so if any of you know what could be wrong, let me know in the comments. The Nokia 6120 had the traditional for the time candy bar design. On the front we got the keyboard, which has a decent click feel, the screen, and the VGA selfie camera for video calls. On the left we can find the speaker grill and a micro SD slot which supports up to 32 GB. On the right we got the volume rocker and a dedicated camera button. On the bottom we got the mini USB port, the charging port, and a 2.5mm headphone jack. On the top we can find a power button, and on the back we've got the 2 megapixel camera and the flash. When it comes to the screen, this phone has a 4x3 2 inches screen, which is really small for today's standards. It has a resolution of 240 by 320, which gives us a pixel density of 200 pixels per inch, which is not bad, and it's capable of displaying 60 million colors. The quality of the panel itself is okay, it has decent brightness and colors, and better viewing angles than some Android phones I've had in this channel like the Galaxy Y. It also featured an early form of always on display where you could see the time, notifications, and missed calls. It only works in front of a light source like the sun, so it's basically like a dim calculator that doesn't produce its own light, so you can't see anything when it's dark. This phone is from a time when the 3.5G spectrum was just being deployed. I remember back in 2008 the craze for the much faster internet speed 3.5G offered compared to 2G, and the difference was huge when loading YouTube videos for example. 3.5G also opened up the possibility for some really cool new features such as video calls. All you had to do was dial the number, select video calls, and that was it. There was no need for third-party apps like Skype or WhatsApp. At the time I used to make a lot of video calls, but nowadays I'm not sure if they still work. I tried calling my Android phone but it didn't work. Maybe it works if I call another phone running Symbian Series 60, but I don't have one with me, so I really don't know if it still works. Sadly, the 3G network is now being discontinued in some countries, so essential things like making regular calls or texting basically depend on whether or not your country still supports 3G. The apps I've got here are just the leftovers of what it was able to do back then. Here I have the likes of WhatsApp that I used since it was a public beta back in 2010, and it worked until 2016, though it's worth mentioning it was functional on the latest version of Symbian up until 2019, pretty much the same as iOS 8. One of these apps is YouTube and its little icon, back when it was a good platform. The app shows a featured video, but we can't play or search anything anymore. Despite this, the app was still usable until 2016, when YouTube finally pulled the plug. Back in the day, I used this app called eBuddy a lot. This app allowed you to message people on many platforms such as Facebook, Microsoft Messenger, and even Google Hangouts. But this app doesn't work anymore, and even the Android version no longer does. I guess apps like this are no longer necessary. The browser used the WebKit engine, so it was on par with iPhone Safari when it came out. Sure, it wasn't as easy to use with a keyboard, but it had extra features like being able to play Flash content, which made playing YouTube videos possible even in 2019. Also, with the help of this browser, I published my first video, but now outside making basic Google searches, there's very little we can do with it, and even Wikipedia doesn't load anymore. However, thanks to Opera Mini, we can still enjoy the web to an extent. We can Google things just fine and even enter youtube.com to see video titles, if you wanted to see that for some reason. We have no issues loading Wikipedia articles, as well as most news sites like the BBC. I tried using Twitter like in the old times, but it fails to do so. The same with Instagram, where the only thing that loads is the logo. I used to like Facebook a lot back in the day, but now I've changed my mind on that. Anyway, the page surprisingly still works like it did in 2011, and we can still send and receive messages, see what people post, and even share things ourselves. At the time, there was an official app for Gmail, but now it doesn't work. However, using Opera Mini, we can still log in and check our email just fine. This really surprised me because this was not possible even on Android 2.3. Another app that, believe it or not, still works is Google Maps. It runs rather well despite how old it is, and most features are still usable, even Street View, which is somewhat resource intensive. Leaving internet-based apps aside, we can still do a lot more things like customizing our phones with nice themes. I've got a couple themes here, and my favorite ones were Velvet with those beautiful red colors and the Alien theme. We can also play videos up to 240p. I have many videos my friends from school share with me, and it was even possible to load full movies here like Titanic. Playing music or listening to the radio is still possible. The sound quality, though mediocre by today's standards, has something to it that always brings me back to the past. Gaming, on the other hand, is still interesting. I had many games that I bought from Cartoon Network, but I don't know how, but I don't have them anymore. I looked for them in some repositories, but they were either impossible to install or were simply broken. I used to play this game called Bird a lot in my Sony Ericsson, but here it doesn't fit because it's not the right resolution. FIFA 2012 doesn't look bad, and I had quite some fun playing it. Age of Empires 2 runs perfectly here as well. There was also a game that I really liked, but I don't remember the name of it anymore. It was about making bike stunts, and the closest thing I can think of is Moto X Mayhem, which I could install here due to low storage. Pre-installed games were pretty fun. I really spent a lot of hours playing City Block, and I have some fond memories of it. The same can be said about Marvel, which was really fun. Despite Series 60 having some decent games, the true potential was with emulation. We can emulate many consoles here like the NES. As you can see, I'm playing Super Mario 3 and it runs flawlessly. I can't say the same about SNES though. Donkey Kong Country, which is a really demanding game, offers an okay experience. It's playable, but it's not ideal. Game Boy Advance games, on the other hand, run perfectly. Mario Kart Advance has no issues. The same can be said about GT Advance, which runs like it was meant to run here. Also, I found no problems running Sega Genesis games. Sonic is perfectly playable other than the weird position I have to play in. Mortal Kombat 3 runs with no lag whatsoever, and sorry for being such a noob, but it's really hard to play behind the camera, and I'm not as bad as it looks. Now, speaking of the camera, we have a 2 megapixel sensor that might not sound like much, but it beats some much newer phones such as the Galaxy Y from 2011 or the Huawei Y221 from late 2014. Of course, the camera was not its strongest point, and even in 2007, there were better mobile cameras. The worst aspect of the camera is how dull the photos look, yet I would honestly rate these photos as decent. Thanks to keeping a decent amount of detail, I managed to improve some of the photos like this one. I'm sure somebody's gonna kill me for this, but in my eyes, the photo looks much better now. Basically what computational photography does automatically, it's possible to be done manually to an extent. Though I have to say that if I did it on a computer, I would achieve much better results. I use my LG V40 for just about everything, and the truth is, I'm very limited when it comes to editing pictures. Anyway, someday I will surely bring you a video on this topic. In low light conditions, the quality takes a big hit, but somehow I've seen worse results coming from much newer phones. This selfie camera was okay for video calls, but for the rest, we better stick to the main camera. But to be fair, we've gotta give it to it for having one, since I've seen phones from even 2016 that did not have a selfie camera. Video on the other hand is mediocre, but honestly given its age I would say it's okay. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. That's the end of the video guys. See you all in the next one. Peace out.